Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Granfia deck profile for August 2023. I wanted to update the Granfia deck since we've had some of the new promo support released. I've also made some changes to some of the numbered ratios for the Granfia deck as a whole. It just adds new draw power and consistency for the playstyle, which is to build up your token numbers on the field for your Noblesse Rose token, being able just to add on to that token as plant gauges instead of being able to call out tokens. So it's almost like you can call out a limitless number of tokens onto the field thanks to this one special kind of token. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the ride deck for our starter. We're using Kind Lordling Granfia. When rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Future Suzerain Granfia. When this unit's rode upon by Genius Wise Wolf Granfia, you may call a plant token to rearguard. So the plant tokens are just the standard 5k power, 1 critical, grade 0 with boost units that you can call out from outside of the deck. So you want to run a good number of these cards for the deck along with our, grade 2, which is Genius Wise Wolf Granfia. On Vanguard, if your rearguard has a plant token and your soul has a Future Suzerain Granfia, when you would ride a grade 3 card with Granfia's card name from your ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand. So being able to save at least some hand consistency for our grade 3 Granfia is also very, very useful. We run this copy along with the 3 copies that we run in the main deck as well. With this card on the Vanguard circle, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1. All plant tokens on your rearguards become plant gauges, and you call a Noblesse Rose token to your back row center rearguard and put all your plant gauges onto that unit. So the Noblesse Rose token is our go-to boost power for our Vanguard Lavian Lord Granfia. And then on the Vanguard circle, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, put 1 or more, up to a total of 5 Noblesse Rose tokens or plant gauges into the drop zone. Choose one of your rear guards. It gets plus 5,000 to end of turn for each card put in the drop zone. If you put 3 or more, you stand that unit. So this is also your answer to being able to get multiple attacks out of the deck, being able to swing with a rear guard first against your opponent, and then restand that card depending how many plant gauges you got rid of off of your Noblesse Rose token, adding additional power to that unit that you restood on the rear guard. For the grade 2s, we are running 4 copies of Ron Orangerine. When this unit is placed on rear guard, you may call a plant token to rear guard. So with the Noblesse Rose token, which we'll go over this card ability as well, on rear guard, this unit cannot be moved to other circles. And if you have a Vanguard with Granfia's card name, all the following effects are active. When you would place a plant token on rear guard, put this unit as a plant gauge instead. So then also, this unit gets plus 5 for each of its units gauge. And when you would retire rear guards as cost, it can be paid by retiring a plant token rear guard, and it can also be paid by discarding plant gauges. So with your Ron Orangerine, if you were to call out a plant token, instead you would just place the plant token underneath the Noblesse Rose, and every time you call out a plant token, it just adds on as a plant gauge additionally. So you can hit some pretty big numbers with your Noblesse Rose token and all the plant tokens you call out. And then from the front row rear guard at the beginning of your battle phase, if you have a Vanguard with Granfia and its card name, you may call a plant token. So on top of the when placed, as long as you have a Ron Orangerine during each battle phase, you'll get the option for you to then place another plant gauge onto your Noblesse Rose token, giving you those numbers to then be able to swing with your rear guard and then restand afterwards as long as you have the cost to pay off of those plant gauges. And then also the 3 copies of Prod Pollen Raphaelis. When placed on rear guard, you can counterblast 1 and call up to 2 plant tokens to rear guard. So that just gives you additional plant gauges to place underneath your Noblesse Rose token thanks to this card. And I was considering running more copies of the Order Prolific Oranges, but this card gives you 2 plant tokens just like Prod Pollen Raphaelis. So this card at least gives you a unit to have on rear guard on top of the tokens that you called out thanks to it. That's why I chose the more copies of this unit over the Prolific Oranges order to use. Now for the grade 1s do take up a good number of the deck with 4 of the new promo. I say new, but it's been out for a good while now, just never got around to actually updating the deck deck, sadly. Fairy of Candor, Darien, from the back row rearguard at the beginning of your battle phase. If you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, call up to 1 plant token to rearguard. If you have a Noblesse Rose token on your rearguard, counterblast 1 and draw a card. So as long as you have your main go-to setup with your Noblesse Rose token, you can get a draw off of this card. It also gives you the additional plant token as well. So if you have Ron Orangerine and Darien on rearguard, that's 2 of your plant gauges to be placed on to your Noblesse Rose token, and then also a counterblast to gain an additional draw, which you really don't use the counterblast much, aside from cards like your Prod Pollen to be able to then give you the additional tokens on the field for you to use. And then also the 4 copies of the Burrow Mushrooms. With this card, when it's put into the soul, call up to 2 plant tokens to rearguard. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, choose one of your rearguards and it gets plus 5,000 till end of turn. So you have the rearguard play just to put this card into your soul, which can help for building up your soul power in the form of the Soul Blast needed for you to have your Noblesse Rose token called out, because there is a good chance that your opponent will try to retire the Noblesse Rose token. So it only protects it when you would retire it as cost to get rid of the plant gauges, but your opponent can easily retire this unit. So then you just need the Soul Blast to be able to call out again, thanks to Granfia. But Burrow Mushrooms, just being able to place in the soul, also gives you 2 plant tokens. So if you have the Noblesse Rose token, placed to begin with, you'll have more of the setup with more gauges, and then also choosing one of your rear guards, and it gets plus 5,000. So the rear guard that could potentially be restanding, thanks to your Vanguard, can also gain the additional power thanks to this card. And then I also run the 4 additional copies of Farmin' Pumpkin. Like I said, there's a lot of one-ofs to run in this deck. On rearguard once per turn, if you have a Vanguard with Granfia in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1 and call a plant token to rearguard. If your Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, you can call 2 instead. So once again, with the token build-up, with our cards being able to have more numbers thanks to cards like this, we have more of a setup to rely on as well, thanks to Farmin' Pumpkin just being a once per turn. So even if it's just on the rear guard to begin with, you just need that Soul Blast once per turn to be able to call out 2 plant gauge tokens onto the field underneath your Noblesse Rose token, with the rest of the grade 1 lineup being the 1 copy of Elementaria Sanctitude, along with the 3 copies of Custodial Dragon, just being the Sentinel choice, and then Elementaria Sanctitude for whenever you go up against a deck with the potential triple drive to not have to pay the discard cost, and then also being able to rely on Custodial Dragon for not having to discard if you have 1 or less cards in hand. Now for the orders, I run 3 copies of the Tearful Malice. When you play this card with a retire of 2 rearguards, you draw a card, put this unit into your soul, and countercharge 1. So you do use counterblasts for cards like Prod, Pull, and Rathalos, and then also the draw power off of cards like our Fairy of Candor Darien. So at least since we have this card, we can build up soul with placing it into the soul, and then also being able to give us our countercharge and also draw power just by having to retire 2 rearguards. And what's great about the retire of 2 rearguards is you can choose the option for rearguards as cost by just removing the 2 plant gauges from underneath your Noblesse Rose token. So for the retire for Tearful Malice, you're not even actually retiring any rearguards off of it. You're just taking off some of the needed plant gauge tokens, which you can easily get back with other cards. The only other order I run for the lineup is the 1 copy of the Prolific Oranges. It's really, like I said, a debate. You can even increase the number of your Prod, Pull, and Rathalos to 4, taking down the Prolific Oranges, but you also have the potential that your rearguards could just be full. So if you don't want to call over another Prod, Pull, and Rathalos, you can have the 1 copy of Prolific Oranges to activate if you haven't played any other orders that turn, like your Tearful Malice also. With the next lineup of our trigger lineup being the 7 criticals, so 4 copies of Dual Pressure Dragon and the 3 copies of Abyss Temptation, just more of the pressure lineup. If you have the critical with the ability to put into soul, you can always replace the 4 copies of Dual Pressure Dragon for that card. And the next trigger spot is the front trigger. I decided on front triggers over the draw triggers just for the added pressure with your restanding rearguard, and then the 5k additional shield of Frenzied Heiress if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater. And then the heal trigger is the Rhythmica Kiwi. I just find it to be the more aesthetically pleasing heal trigger for the deck, being a musical one, just like with Leonore. And then our over trigger is the Source Dragon Deity, Blessed Favor. I thought about running the new copy from the Festival Booster 2023. If you wanted to run the copy of Valnude in the deck instead of Blessed Favor, you're always welcome to try out that card instead of this over trigger in the deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, I've been wanting to update the deck with the newer support for a good while now. Just never got around to it. But as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.